Selamat datang di Universitas Indonesia.
Welcome to Universitas Indonesia.
Sesuai dengan persyaratan dan informasi pemilu, kami dari UPT Keselamatan, Kesehatan Kerja dan Umum akan menyampaikan misi keselamatan.
According to safety rules and regulations in Universitas Indonesia, we are all professional health, safety, and environment units who would like to deliver safety induction.
Saat ini kita sedang berada di Balai Sidang Universitas Indonesia.
Nah, di Balai Sidang Universitas Indonesia.
Pada ruangan ini terdapat dua pintu utama yang terletak di bagian depan pada sisi kiri dan sisi kanan.
There are two main doors in the front, each on the left side and the right side.
Serta terdapat dua pintu darurat di bagian belakang pada sisi kiri dan sisi kanan.
And there are two emergency exits in the back, each on the left side and the right side.
Gunakan dua pintu utama sebagai jalur evakuasi bagi Anda yang duduk di bagian depan.
Please use the main doors as evacuation routes for those who sit in the front.
Dan gunakan dua pintu darurat sebagai jalur evakuasi bagi Anda yang duduk di bagian belakang.
And please use the emergency exits for those who sit in the back.
Bila terjadi kebakaran, tetap tenang dan jangan panik. Jika Anda mampu, padamkan api dengan menggunakan apar yang berada di dalam ruangan.
In case of fire situation, please be calm and do not panic. There are fire extinguishers in this room, each on the left side and the right side.
Segera lakukan evakuasi dan petugas akan memandu Anda ke titik berkumpul. Titik berkumpul berada di lapangan rotunda.
The assembly point is in front of this building.
Jika terjadi gempa bumi, Anda diminta untuk tetap tenang dan jangan panik. Segera merunduk, merapat ke dinding, hindari area kaca dan benda yang digantung serta lindungi kepala Anda.
In case of earthquake, please stay calm and do not panic. Drop down, find the closest safe location. Stay away from window glass and hanging objects and always protect your head.
Selalu berhati-hati saat melangkah dan gunakan pegangan tangga saat menaiki dan menuruni tangga.
Mind your step and please use the handrails when necessary. According to Rector Duta, Universitas Indonesia is a smoke-free area.
Jagalah selalu kebersihan sekitar Anda dan buanglah sampah pada tempat yang telah disediakan.
Keep the environment nice and clean and please do not litter.
Terima kasih atas perhatian Anda dan selamat melanjutkan aktivitas.
Thanks for your attention and have a good day.
Ya,
His Excellency Robert Smith, the United States of America's Ambassador to the Republic of Indonesia, Professor Sulistyowati Irianto, as the head of postgraduate program Universitas Indonesia, the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, the Dean of the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, and the Dean of the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences, the professors and lecturers of Universitas Indonesia, the students of Universitas Indonesia, the alumni of Universitas Indonesia, and also the public journalists, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, good morning, and welcome to Balai Sidang Universitas Indonesia to the public lecture of His Excellency Robert Blake, as the United States of America's Ambassador to the Republic of Indonesia, under the theme Innovation and Digital Economy. Proceeding to the first agenda of this morning, we will have a welcoming remarks from Professor Sulistyowati Irianto as the head of postgraduate program of Universitas Indonesia. To Professor Sulistyowati, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning. On behalf of the Rector of University of Indonesia, I would like to warmly welcome the Ambassador of United States for Indonesia, His Excellency Mr. Robert Blake Jr. I would like to welcome the U.S. Embassy staff, representative of the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, my colleagues due from Faculty of Social and Political Science, from Culture and Humanities Studies, from Mathematics and Science, from nursing faculties, Professor Melda from International Office University of Indonesia, lecturers, students, distinguished guests, friends, and colleagues. Especially, I would like to express my thanks to the American Studies Center, Ibu Susi Sudarma, Adia Duta Sakti, who made this very important lecture possible today. This is a great honor for us at the University of Indonesia to welcome His Excellency in this very special occasion. I learned that you are a prominent diplomat career with international relations study background. I Googled your name last night. It would be delighted to listen from you on how is your knowledge and experience related to innovation and digital economy, a very crucial issue to study in the universities today as they target many people around the world in the digital era. The main objective of this lecture is to raise awareness on the relevancy of innovation towards digital economy and how to enhance engagement between agents of innovation and digital economies, the government, and university. I just would like to add some more aspects on how the global economy and digital era resulted in the borderless state and borderless law. I myself am studying legal anthropology and living in law as faculty of law. One theoretical approach studied by many legal anthropologists around the world is legal pluralism, which conceptualizes the coexistence of the state law and people's law in a specific social arena. From the global perspective, the existence of the state law and other different laws, or so-called people's law in the social arena, are intervened by international and transnational law. The adoption and hybrid among different laws possibly happen in a positive direction. International law, international treaties, mainly in the field of humanitarian, including women's rights, affected the national law in many countries. People in the grassroots nowadays knows what basic rights is, and the raising awareness about the rights has become basic knowledge among students, workers, farmers, fishers, people on the street, political elites, men and women. The CEDAW Conventions, that is Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, is a very good example, as it has been ratified by 189 countries around the world. Indonesia ratified this convention through the Act No. 7 in 1984. When I give training to faculties of law teachers, legal practitioners, and government officials within the last 20 years, many of them are of the opinion that the CEDAW Convention was made by Western nation and will not match with the Eastern culture. It was unthinkable that the ones who contributed a lot in the CEDAW Convention making process were delegations from the non-Western countries. They came to the UN to fight for a legal instrument in protecting women in their home countries who suffer from all forms of discrimination such as women trafficking, genital mutilation, and child marriage. I'm happy to mention that Article 14 of the Convention, prohibition to discriminated women in rural areas, came from the prominent Indonesian lady, Ibu Suwarni. In this united group, it is almost impossible to dichotomize international law with African national law and people's law, since it is no longer relevant with the recent changing society and economy. Though the globalized legal pluralism implies to the reality of the unaffordable changing of the law. Yet, the dynamic changing in law is also driven by the society, by the speedy social change which is closely connected to economic, political, cultural, and possibly religious issues. In the globalized law era, this recent development is essential to be noted, particularly when doing legal aid and advocacy for advancing local people's rights in dealing with the issue of environment and resource management, women, and poverty eradication. Recognition of the rights of vulnerable groups in society is legitimated under international legal instruments and policies ratified by many countries, including Indonesia. The state and society are the ones who must be responsible in applying the ratified and signed international treaties into practice. Finally, His Excellency, we would like to learn more from you about what is going on in the global world today. Networking and hand-in-hand collaboration with the US are crucial for us to achieve knowledge, understanding, and to find a solution and strategies to have better life for the next generation. His Excellency, the floor is yours, and I wish you a productive lecture and discussion. Thank you very much and bless us all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Sulistiawati, for the welcoming remarks. On the next agenda, we will have an introductory remarks that will be delivered by Dr. Irit Rahman Agus as the head of American Studies Graduate Program at the University of Indonesia. To Dr. Irit Rahman Agus, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Distinguished guests, we have deans from many faculties. We have dean from the graduate school who is here on behalf of the rector. We have the head of international office and the team from the US Embassy in Geneva. I would like to start not topic about innovation and the digital economy, but I would like to introduce our distinguished speaker today. But before reading the official credential, I want to share with all of you that Bapak Dubes, many years ago, when he was younger, he's still young now, but much younger, he already loved Indonesia. He came to Bali and Surabaya as a backpacker. And Pak Dubes also is like our present president, like Pak Jokowi. He is Duta Besar bersama. Yes, he has been to Ciliwung, he has been to Bagaimana, to Ternate, to Papua, and not only the big cities, but also the small cities. And you have been with PKL, right? Kaki Lima, and you invited them to your home, to your residence. And so we have a great ambassador of the US who is very much like our present president. Now, getting back to my real task is introducing His Excellency, the US Ambassador Robert Oren Blake, who has been here since January 30th, 2014. So it's a long time, but I believe you have seen more than many of us have. Previously, Ambassador Blake served as Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs from 2009 to 2013. He also served as Ambassador to the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka and the Republic of Mali from 2006 to 2009. And prior to that, Ambassador Blake served in India, Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, and Nigeria, as well as holding several positions at the State Department in Washington, D.C. He is a graduate from Harvard College and has an MA, and this is very important because I'm sure we have a lot of the alumni here, like Ibu Susi. He is a graduate from Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. So welcome to Kuliah, and we are all looking forward to your innovation and the digital economy in public sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Irwin Astrid, for a introductory remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, now let's proceed to our main agenda this morning, which is the public lecture. This public lecture will be moderated by Ms. Susi Sri Suparni Sudarman. Allow me to introduce Ms. Sudarman before we invite her and also His Excellency Ambassador to the stage. Ms. Susi Sri Suparni Sudarman is a lecturer in International Relations Studies Department and also the Political Science Department at the Faculty of Social and Political Sciences in Universitas Indonesia. She is an alumna getting the Master of Arts in U.S. Foreign Policy and also International Economics in 1993 from Paul H. Nitze School of Advanced International Studies and also studied at Johns Hopkins University and U.S. Foreign Policy Studies in Northwestern University, USA. Currently, she is now also a board member of the American Studies Association of Indonesia, or ASAI, since 1994 until present. So let's welcome our moderator, Ms. Susi Sudarman, and also our speaker, His Excellency the United States of America's Ambassador to the Republic of Indonesia.
Thank Thank you. Distinguished professors, lecturers, and students of Universitas Indonesia, we are indeed deeply honored by the presence of the United States Ambassador Robert Blake with us today to explain the details what exactly is involved in issues most relevant to innovation in the digital economy. In this new era, human evolution has become human technology co-evolution. We're becoming part of the machine, and it is becoming part of us. The German word Technik means not just technology, but the mastery of the methods and processes that shape and steer it. In today's emerging world, technique can be something of a broad index of preparedness for the future hybrid age. We are pleased to welcome His Excellency, the U.S. Ambassador Robert Blake, to deliver his public lecture, followed by a question and answers session immediately after. A round of applause for
Well, first of all, my good friend, Professor Susie Suleiman, Dean Arianto, Dr. Agus, another very old friend, all of the other deans and distinguished faculty members, of course, all of the students. Thank you very much for coming today, and I look forward to a really interesting discussion with all of you. I want to thank, first of all, all of the speakers for their kind introductions. I don't think I've ever been compared to President Jacoby before, so they should just retire right now because it's not going to get much better than that. But thank you very much. It is my I did come here as a 19-year-old and traveled all over Java and Bali, and I would have gone further, but like most 19-year-olds, I forgot when my visa ran out. So I happened to look at my passport and I saw that my visa was expiring the next day, so I had to leave. But I had a wonderful time then, and I said I would come back sometime, but I never dreamed that I would have the opportunity to come back as the U.S. ambassador. So it was great. I want to just thank all the sponsors, not of course the University of Indonesia, but also the other sponsors who are listed here. It's great to have so much cooperation on international affairs. And again, I thank Susie for all of her efforts to help pull all this together. I also just want to say what a great privilege it is for me to be back at the University of Indonesia. I think this is my third or fourth or fifth time, I can never remember, but I always enjoy coming back here. You're one of the premier universities in all of Indonesia. And of course, you have great bragging rights because you hosted the visit of President Obama in 2010. So most Americans will never forget that. So thank you for that. What I thought I'd do is just give about 15 or 20 minutes of remarks, and then we'll just open it up for questions on really anything you'd like to ask about. So let me just start with a very brief introduction just about the United States and our relations, and then we can go, and then I'll go into the digital economy and innovation. As I think all of you know, relations between the United States and Indonesia reached a new peak late last year in October with President Jokowi's successful visit to Washington to meet with President Obama. And our two presidents decided at that time to elevate our partnership to a strategic partnership. They announced over $20 billion in I need to talk louder.
Ke bawah gimana? bertugas masih ini kita memang khususnya motret.
So, as I was saying, our two presidents decided at that time to elevate our partnership to a strategic partnership. They announced over $20 billion in new investment and business deals, and they enhanced cooperation on a wide range of strategic, regional, and global challenges, including to develop and further our very important trade relationship. And now President Obama looks forward to welcoming President Jokowi back to the United States, along with leaders of all the ASEAN countries, to pursue a stronger and more robust U.S.-ASEAN partnership at the Sunnyland Summit that will take place next week in California. President Jokowi has set out an ambitious agenda to increase Indonesia's economic growth and to reduce poverty. And to reach his targets, he has rightly pointed out that Indonesia can no longer rely simply on exporting commodities and consumer spending to drive growth. So today I'd like to discuss with you one important issue that I think has the promise to transform Indonesia's economic future. And I'm talking about Indonesia's digital economy development and innovation agenda. We are living in a time of incredible change, with technology playing an increasingly important role in our daily lives. What we now know as the Internet was created in the late 1960s by U.S. researchers. And that network expanded very slowly until 1990, when a British scientist brought order to the Internet by creating what we now call the World Wide Web. And the 1990s saw an explosion in the use of the Internet. In 1995, Amazon.com and eBay ushered in America's e-commerce boom and transformed the way that millions of Americans, and now millions of people around the world, shop. In the past decade, social media has once again changed the landscape of the Internet, allowing instantaneous communication around the world. So we've come a long way since those early days of the Internet, just 25 years ago. As we all know, the Internet has made the world smaller. The Internet and technology innovation have allowed cities to become smart, governments to become more efficient and transparent, and societies to become more connected. America's leading digital companies are having a profound impact on the United States and the world. And let me give a few examples. The largest hotel company in the world, as measured by room bookings, is Airbnb, a company that owns no hotels. Amazon.com, likewise, has no retail stores, at least not yet, but took over the title of the world's largest retailer from Walmart in July of last year. And the world's most popular media owner, Facebook, is a social media company. All of these companies are changing the face of business, not only in the United States, but in Indonesia and around the world. But there is no time to rest on laurels, because the march of innovation is proceeding. And we are now seeing the next wave of innovation. The smartphones in your pockets today have more computing power than NASA had when they sent a man to the moon. Cloud computing is reducing costs and increasing mobility. And the industrial internet, the so-called Internet of Things, will monitor industrial performance remotely, providing efficiency gains that will be worth hundreds of billions of dollars to the global economy. And the next wave of innovation is coming fast. Companies around the world are making breakthroughs in advanced robotics, self-driving cars, and artificial intelligence that will continue to fuel innovation. With more than 85 billion Indonesians online already, Indonesia's digital potential is enormous. With young people like all of you leading the way, Indonesia can become a leader in e-commerce and digital development. Indeed, young Indonesians just like you already are using technology to solve problems for people here and around the world. When William Tanuwijaya founded Tokopedia to provide a platform for Indonesians to buy and sell goods online, he probably didn't expect that it would become Indonesia's first billion-dollar tech company. After receiving a $100 million investment from Japan's SoftBank and U.S. firm Sequoia Capital in 2014, Tokopedia is well on its way to becoming Indonesia's first unicorn. Gojek roared on the Indian scene in 2015, and now Gojek drivers with their green jackets and helmets are everywhere. Its founder, Nadine Makarim, attended Brown University and then Harvard Business School. Gojek helps to solve a problem that we all face in Jakarta: traffic. A ride on Gojek can get you to places faster, and Gojek delivery means that you can now outsource waiting in traffic. The company applies its user-friendly app to an existing and expanding network of Ojeks to increase efficiency for us all. So Indonesia's digital ecosystem is vibrant, but it remains small. Indonesia's e-commerce sector was valued at $13 billion in 2015. According to a recent Accenture study, the U.S. internet economy accounts for more than 6% of America's GDP, whereas estimates put the Indonesian digital economy about 1% of your GDP. So there's tremendous room for growth in Indonesia. But Indonesia still lags behind its neighbors in some key areas, including internet penetration and the percentage of the population that is participating in the digital economy. So the question is, how can Indonesia achieve its digital potential? How many of you have heard of the triple helix concept for innovation? The main idea behind the triple helix is that government, academia, and the private sector each have important roles to play in innovation in Indonesians unable to participate in your country's digital transformation. To expand internet access, the Indonesian government launched a $20 billion 5-year national broadband plan in 2014. The plan seeks to leverage government funding and private sector investment to expand internet access across the country, allowing more Indonesians to get connected and allowing the government to utilize technology to improve service delivery, including healthcare, education, and other e-government initiatives. The United States, through the U.S. Agency for International Development, supported the development of the National Broadband Plan and continues to support efforts to identify and test rural connectivity technologies to bring rural communities online. We also recently announced a new Global Connect initiative that aims to bring 1.5 billion additional people around the world online by 2020. We will work with governments, non-governmental organizations,
academic institutions like this one, and the private sector to mainstream the view that internet connectivity is as fundamental to economic development as roads, electricity, and other infrastructure. Indonesia can be a key partner to ensure that we all make connectivity a key part of our national development strategies. And the private sector is doing its part as well. Google recently signed agreements with Telkomsel, Indosat, and XL Axiata to begin testing its new Google Loon technology here in Indonesia. I hope you all have heard about this. Google has developed a technology to use large balloons flying high in the atmosphere, like cellular base stations in the sky, that can help Indonesia to expand internet access to underserved areas. This effort represents a tremendous partnership between U.S. and Indonesian companies for the benefit of Indonesia's people. A second priority is access to capital. We need to ensure that Indonesian innovators have that access. It's a critical element of any digital economy. And as part of the government's recently announced e-commerce roadmap, the government seeks to grow the digital economy tenfold, 10 times, to $130 billion, and support the creation of 1,000 new technopreneurs by 2020. This is an ambitious but appropriate goal. But to meet these goals, Indonesia's innovators will need access to capital, whether it's small seed investments in an entrepreneur with an idea, or the $100 million that was invested in Tokopedia. U.S. tech players can play a critical role in helping Indonesia achieve its digital economy goals. Investors that focus on early stage investment represent so-called smart money, as they offer mentorship, connections, and other much-needed intangibles that will help Indonesian startups bring their ideas to market, scale up their businesses, and then join the digital economy. These early venture capital investors are also willing to risk failure in their pursuit to find the next big thing, a critical ingredient in any successful startup ecosystem. Y Combinator, a leading early-stage investor and accelerator in Silicon Valley, funds more than 100 startups a year with very small seed funding. Many of those startups fail, but that's okay, because among the more than 1,000 startups Y Combinator has funded since 2005 are tech success stories like Airbnb, Reddit, Twitch, and many other companies you probably never heard of, but are doing extremely well. Homegrown Indonesian venture capital investors can provide similar funding and support for local startups, but Indonesian capital by itself is not sufficient to meet the growing needs of Indonesia's vibrant digital ecosystem. For that reason, we should all welcome and celebrate any capital investment in the Indonesian tech sector of any size from any place, as it represents a vote of confidence in Indonesia's digital future and will help guide the success of those 1,000 technopreneurs the government aims to support. While the government is contemplating opening up parts of the e-commerce sector to foreign investment, we continue to encourage BKPM to allow foreign investment in e-commerce at all stages of a company's development. We should provide Indonesia's tech startups all the tools they need to succeed, and more sources of capital are a critical tool in that toolbox. Finally, startups need access to talent. Indonesia has a lot of tech talent out there, but the booming tech sector still suffers from a talent deficit. As startups grow, finding talented engineers, coders, and other tech professionals is becoming increasingly difficult, and it will continue to be difficult if Indonesia does not increase the number of students who are pursuing higher education. According to Red Wing Asia, only about 22% of college-aged Indonesians are enrolled in university. Compare that to the United States, where more than 65% of young people pursue higher education after high school. As part of the e-commerce policy roadmap, the government will work to create an educational environment that is conducive to digital economy growth. And that's where academic institutions, such as this one, come in. Just as MIT and other U.S. universities have become centers of innovation and sources of America's entrepreneurs and innovators, Indonesian universities can become the engines of Indonesia's digital economy growth. To do so, Indonesian universities must become more entrepreneurial and seek partnerships with the private sector to boost research and development involving students in cutting-edge R&D. A great example of this is the Geothermal Capacity Building Program, a partnership between the University of Southern California, the Bandung Institute of Technology, USAID, and Star Energy, an Indonesian private geothermal company. The program conducts seminars on geothermal technologies, provides scholarships to students pursuing master's degrees at ITB, and creates opportunities for students to work alongside experts from American and Indonesian companies. Through this successful partnership, ITB's geothermal master's program is strengthened, and the participating companies gain a steady stream of well-qualified graduates to fill their ranks. But such partnerships are still the exception. Every university in Indonesia should be thinking about how its faculties can partner with the local private sector to create partnerships that will fund research, train the students in those faculties, and drive the innovation that will create jobs in districts and provinces across Indonesia. Another priority has to be to strengthen university leadership and management. Through the Higher Education Leadership and Management Project, or HELP, USAID is supporting the Directorate General for Higher Education to strengthen its strategic planning capacity, while directly assisting 50 higher education institutions across Indonesia to improve general administration practices, quality assurance of academic programs, administrators' leadership skills, and financial management capacity. By providing this technical assistance, the program is helping to prepare Indonesian educational institutions for tomorrow's economy. USAID's University Partnership Program has also developed more than 24 long-term partnerships between U.S. and Indonesian universities. And these partnerships are providing Indonesian faculty and students with links to their counterparts in the United States. And they've helped many Indonesian faculty members and graduate students to broaden and deepen their research skills. Let me just give you one example, which is the partnership between Bogor Agricultural University, Columbia University, Sampurna, Tufts, and the New York Hall of Science. And this partnership has supported the development of maker spaces for students, teachers, faculty, and others to promote innovation at schools through hands-on STEM education, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. These spaces are equipped with tools for faculty members and students to carry out their research through innovative processes and equipment with technical support from their U.S. counterparts. The program has in turn led to a new partnership with Intel Indonesia here, which is providing resources for advanced development of the initial research and products that were developed and created by these makerspace partnerships. So again, another form of mentorship that is really turning a big business opportunity. So while we are committed to strengthening universities in Indonesia to help produce the leaders of tomorrow, we also see tremendous value in promoting educational opportunities in the United States. Study abroad, as most of the faculty here know, is a great way to ensure that Indonesian students can access the finest higher education opportunities in the world. Today, only about 40,000 Indonesians pursue higher education abroad. And we are working with the government and with universities to increase those numbers. Our Education USA advisors are available every day at Amerika and at centers throughout Indonesia to help you find opportunities to study in America. I'm also a huge supporter of the government of Indonesia's scholarship program through the Ministry of Finance called the LPDP program. If you haven't heard of it, it's an amazing opportunity for talented Indonesian graduate students. LPDP currently awards nearly 3,000 scholarships annually and intends to award up to 5,000 the coming year to allow Indonesian students to pursue degrees at foreign universities. And we want those LPDP scholars to pursue a world-class education at one of the 55 top U.S. universities that are part of that program. And virtually every American university that you've heard of, the Ivy League schools, Stanford, MIT, and many, many more, are all part of the LPDP program. So those of you who are undergraduates here today, contemplating getting a master's or PhD, there is no better opportunity than to think and learn about this scholarship program. But there's another pool of talent that can be tapped to help Indonesia meet its digital goals. A global talent pool that has experience building digital economies in the United States and around the world. And once again, Silicon Valley illustrates my point. Silicon Valley attracts the world's top entrepreneurs and innovators. And foreign-born workers now make up almost half of the tech workers in Silicon Valley. By building their companies in the United States, these foreign workers create jobs and add tremendous value to the American economy. Indonesia can follow Silicon Valley's lead and welcome foreign talent into its tech sector here to bridge the talent deficit facing the country as it grows its global economy. So in sum, I am excited to see Indonesia's vibrant tech ecosystem take flight. But Indonesia will not reach its digital potential overnight. It will take time, hard work, and a conducive policy environment to make it happen. It will take the access to people and markets, access to capital, and access to talent that I've discussed today. And it will take people like all of you to lead Indonesia's digital transformation. I have no doubt that within Indonesia's young population, and maybe right here in this room, we will find the next Bill Gates, the next Steve Jobs, or the next Mark Zuckerberg. So the future is yours, and it's a digital future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think the main point that we should remember is that the digital economy is only 1% of our GDP. That's important to note. And then another point that he pointed out about people, market, capital, and talent, which requires UPI to begin thinking about this because of all the cooperation between universities and the U.S. and the private sector. It seems like other universities have started doing so. Meanwhile, we need to think hard, especially for the younger students, of finding innovative ideas that can continue to spark up, energize Universitas Indonesia to become one of the collaborators, not only ITB, not only IPB, but Universitas Indonesia. So I opened this discussion because it's not that important to repeat again what he said, but it's important to remember 1% of GDP, people, capital, and talent. We have the talent when we should be able to provoke more collaboration with the private sector and therefore improve the digital context of Indonesia through innovative ideas that comes through Universitas Indonesia. Now I'll open up questions and answers from the right to the left. 3 per terms. Any hands? Show of hands. 1. Okay. Go.
This is talk about innovation in digital economy. For the first phase in the operation, digital economy refers to the change indicate operates for all comprehensive economics sector plus digitizing information by computer. So, for example, Malaysian and Australians has been preparing for the big step forward to development, for example, MSC and ABCD. So, as the developing countries, of course, Indonesians take serious steps to the developing digital economy. My question is how we as young people will face this problem, because Indonesians lack of knowledge from so lack of the implementation of digital. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm Isabel Semina. I'm from Faculty of Economics and Business, concentration marketing. My thesis is social media advertising on Facebook, and my focus is research managing brand social media on Google advertising. I want to ask about what's your opinion for this phenomenon? As we know, Indonesia is the biggest user. First is Tiongkok, China, and the second is Brazil. And the second, this is our dreams from Faculty of Economics and Faculty of Engineering and Faculty of Computer Science. We are discussing about this phenomenon, digital economy. We wish we are not only going to be a user of Facebook or Google, but we want to be a part of the developer e-commerce innovation, and we need an access to connecting with the expertise or programming or others or firms, parties to support our dreams. We need like Silicon Valley in US, maybe in Tiongkok, they already have, but we don't have until now. And then we are, as a student, we are discussing about this, and would you please give your perspective or your government's support for our university? Thank you.
Terima kasih. Selamat pagi Bapak yang hormati. My name is Moko. I'm a former journalist. I saw your PSA on TV with mantan preman. Saya mantan jurnalis. Preman pensiun ya saya. Alright. My question, talking about digital economy, I think it's borderless because on internet, so it's difficult to define which country or jurisdiction that takes revenue. So what your perspective about this digital economy for government, Indonesian government? How about taxation on digital economy? Is it the right time to implementation, or just like a challenge or good thing or not? And the second question, Indonesia has more than 17,000 islands, so one of the main of digital economy is infrastructure. So what do you think about Indonesia to, face this problem? Terima kasih.
Thank you very much. Those are all great questions. Let me just take them in order here. So, if I understood the first question correctly, it was, how can Indonesian students here and elsewhere, how can they become entrepreneurs and seize the opportunity? And I would say the answer to that is really three things. First, I think it's important to have the right skills. And so I think particularly the tech people tend to come out of people who have studied engineering and science and mathematics. So people that have studied those particular disciplines will enhance their chances to be good tech entrepreneurs. So that's one thing. Secondly is take advantage of the various groups here that are now starting up to help to provide mentorship and advice to young entrepreneurs. So there are a number of those underway. One of them that is probably where will be some programs very soon is something called GEPI, which is the Global Entrepreneurship Program in Indonesia. And if you Google that, you can find out when there will be new programs coming on that. But essentially what happens is that Indonesian tech entrepreneurs, and sometimes American tech entrepreneurs, provide regular mentorship and advice to young, again, startups to help them develop their ideas. So that's the second thing, is get some help, get some advice. And the third, and perhaps most important, is don't be afraid to fail. In many Asian societies, it's considered shameful if your first idea doesn't pan out, and that's just not the way technology works. I gave the example of Y Combinator, and only a very small fraction of the startups that they fund actually succeed. And that's fine, because the ones that do succeed do very, very well, like Airbnb and things like that. But it's just important from the other side that the entrepreneurs understand that, it's okay to fail the first time. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, all of them had failed to begin with. But in failing, they learn
what they did wrong, and then they were able to improve it the next time around, and eventually they got it right. Famously, Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb, apparently he tried 10,000 times before he finally got it right. So, and of course, then revolutionized electricity and everything else. So don't be afraid to fail. The next question was about social media and how social media, what role it can play in developing the digital economy. And the answer is a very significant one. These days, what we call the app economy, the application economy, from all of the smartphones that all of you use every day is enormous. And Apple, just by itself, is now planning to create training centers, research and development training centers here to, again, help young Indonesians to learn how to write code, basically write applications, to develop applications, mostly for the Indonesian market to begin with, because it's such a fast expanding market. But that's just one small example. There are so many different apps for so many different kinds of smartphones. And for those of you who don't want to wait, you can just go onto the Apple website and you can see that already many Indonesians are producing apps for Apple. And it's a very good business model. I think you get to keep 60% of the profits and Apple keeps 40%, something like that. So it's, if you get a good idea, you can do extremely well. The third question was, what should government do to help nurture the digital economy here? And I talked a lot about that in my speech. But I think the main point there is that it needs to first create the right regulatory environment, particularly one that's going to protect people's ideas and provide things like patents and so forth, so that there's an incentive to innovate. If you have come up with a great idea and then you patent it and then somebody else tries to steal it, they won't be able to do that. And so you need to have a good system to protect those kinds of what we call intellectual property. And so intellectual property protection is an extremely important part of innovation, and an area that I think the government is giving increasingly important focus and attention to, which is very, very important. The other, I think, important lesson that we've learned from countries around the world is that while government needs to create a good, solid regulatory environment, it's got to be careful not to over-regulate and get in the way of innovation. And so, for example, in many countries around the world, governments have come in and they've taxed these startups very heavily and basically created disincentives for people to innovate. So it's very, very important that the government regulatory hand be relatively light, so that again, people are going to, and that government really get out of the way once the appropriate policy environment has been established. The other question that was quite interesting was about Indonesia's islands and how you have 6,000 inhabited islands, and how do you create disseminate the internet? And that indeed has been one of the challenges, and that's why new experiments like Google Umum I think are very, very interesting, because they don't need any kind of hard wiring. They will connect people from space, really, from these balloons. And this sounds like a very advanced futuristic idea, but in fact it's already being, trials are already underway in some countries, and Indonesia will be one of the first of those countries. So I think this is real, and it provides an excellent opportunity. Many other, I know your Minister Rudi Antara, who is a very good leader on many of these issues, is also talking to the telecommunications companies to take advantage of satellite technology and then have a public-private partnership with the telecom companies where they build the towers for telecom reception, but then you can also get, of course, internet through your smartphones and so forth. So that's another initiative that's now underway with the telecom companies here to expand access to the internet. All of those are good, and they are consistent with each other. They don't have to be contradictory. So I think efforts are already underway, but those need to be, again, accelerated as much as possible so everybody has access. And you know, we've already seen some wonderful examples of how people are using the internet, for example, to fishermen are using a new technology called Nfish, where they can basically access satellite data and they can see where fish are. And the people that have the technology can then go out and not spend as much time looking for fish, but they have to do it sustainably. So they don't give the technology to companies with big nets and things like that that are going to wipe out the fishery. So that's a good example of how relatively poor people are using the internet to their great advantage.
Okay, now the second term of questions, maybe 1, 2, 3. Your slide. Okay.
Good morning, Professor and Your Excellency. My name is Fajri Ramadan, the undergraduate student of Faculty of Economics and Business. Thank you for the change. But in this stage, I will not ask about the innovation in digital economy, but the other question. As we know, the digital world gives us the great potential of economy, as Your Excellency previously said, that Indonesia startup is increasing in number and quality, and also the economic value. But we know that recently, the digital world is also the way of terrorism spreading their value and ideology. My question is, what is USA government strategy in digital world to prevent terrorism, especially Islamic states? This context, especially in Indonesia, as we know Indonesia is the biggest Muslim country, and previously Indonesia has been attacked by terrorists last month in Sarina, near the embassy of the United States. My second question is, what is USA assistance in Indonesia to war against terrorism? Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. I'm Ida from Kuliah Humanities. First of all, I would like to thank the Ambassador of the United States for coming here and to inspire us all from the lecture. And yeah, I'm just we all know these days that the leading companies from the internet and digital economy are most of them come from the United States. And it's just I think it's just a shame that some of us from Indonesia and part of the Indonesian some of them are Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg, but they don't get the help and the opportunity to develop themselves more. And I just think that maybe from the United States, the development of the technology and everything that related to internet is nothing without the help of the government. So I'm just how the government of the United States helps Facebook or eBay or Amazon to develop their e-commerce and become the leading companies these days. And maybe it's I'm asking for is there any chance for young people in this country to come to the United States by providing by the United States government to come and to develop their self, but more into technology, because I think that it's more into education and science and everything, but I'm asking about the digital economic field. Thank you.
this can be done. I'm a Fulbright alumni of Background, private university lecturer. I just would like to ask you some questions. I know firsthand that it is very difficult to invite large companies with money in Indonesia, to sponsor or to become a foster to our entrepreneurship program. We do have an entrepreneurship program in my university currently, and we are quite lucky in that sense because my university is actually owned by one of these big companies. But even then, it is quite difficult to obtain money from companies in Indonesia. Companies are only attracted to products or innovations that can economy will bring them profits. This is the fact. Research is actually a very long process, and not everything that we research on will end up in profits. So the bottom line question is, if the government does not have enough funding for innovations and companies are quite reluctant to sponsor, what do you think about this situation?
Again, very, very good questions. Thank you for all of those. So the first question was about how the internet has many benefits, but that extremists are also able to take advantage of the internet, and what should one do about that? And I think that the first point to make is that the answer is not to shut down the internet or restrict the internet, because it's going to have so many negative impacts if you do that. So the answer, I think, is to try to work with companies, with social media companies and others, to figure out how to stop extremists from using their websites. So I'll give you an example. I read over the weekend that Twitter just recently shut down some very large number, tens of thousands of Twitter accounts that were being used to promote extremism around the world. So the social media companies are very much aware that extremists are trying to use their platforms to promote extremism. So they're very, I think, willing to work with concerned governments to try to stop that in some way. And they're also looking for opportunities to do interesting kinds of programs. And I'll give you maybe one example. Google, which, as you know, also has all kinds of programs for creating videos and things like that. And they recently sponsored a YouTube competition where young students from Besar were invited to come and think about what would be an effective counter-radicalism message, and what could fit into a YouTube video of 1 or 2 minutes maximum. And so there was a competition, and all the Besar students had to do was come up with the ideas. YouTube will produce it and help them to figure out how to get it online. But the most important is the content, and that's where young students can really have because they know very well what is going to resonate with other young Indonesians and what won't. So I think that the companies are doing a combination of the hard closing down of different accounts, but they're also looking at the supply side as well. How can they take advantage of the talents of young Indonesians to counter the messaging of ISIS and others? And I think Indonesia has been quite effective, not just using companies like Google, but Muhammadiyah and Hindu and others have been very, very active in countering these messages, and I think that's been quite effective. And obviously we'd like to encourage that, not just in Indonesia, but having those groups working to advise people overseas, in the Middle East in particular. So that's one thing. I should just say that's only one part of
more of a wider counter-terrorism strategy. One has got to be, you've got to have good policing, which you certainly do. I think the police response to the Serena attacks was very good, very professional. Secondly, you need to have better laws that make it harder and illegal for people to support groups like ISIS. And again, I know the government is now working with the DPR. There's a draft bill that is soon to be sent to the DPR that will make it harder for people to support ISIS and to facilitate actions by ISIS here in Indonesia and elsewhere. So the legal framework is very, very important. And then I think it's important to look at things like the travel of foreign terrorist fighters and make it harder for people to join the fighting that's going on in Iraq and Syria, but also make it illegal for them to come back. So if somebody has gone there and you have proof of that, their citizenship is revoked. And again, I think the government's working on that. But again, the travel of these people must be monitored, and they don't all just get on a flight from Soekarno-Hatta and fly to Turkey. They go through different routes to hide their intentions. So maybe they'll go through Malaysia or they'll go through Brunei. I don't know. They'll go in a variety of different ways. So it's very important that there be good communication and information exchange between all of the governments on those things to, again, stop that kind of travel from taking place. The second question was about how did the government help Facebook and Google and so forth? And my answer to that is hardly at all. I don't think the government really had, if you were to ask Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or any of them what assistance they got from the government, they would probably say nothing. They came up with the ideas, they came up with, they went and sought private capital from investors. And again, they would probably say the best thing the government can do is stay out of the way. And they did not expect to get any kind of help from the government in terms of financing and things like that. So, and again, the government I know is trying to do to create a good policy environment here, but it's very, very important that you don't look to the government to help support the development of the digital economy. That's going to come from the private sector here as it does in every other country, and that should be your focus. Again, I would just say to those of you who are aspiring entrepreneurs to, again, think about studying in the United States, go to some of these places where there are already good tech communities underway. And I will say there's already quite a large group of Indonesians who are in Silicon Valley itself. I think there are an estimated 75 to 100 Indonesians who are currently working in Silicon Valley. So there's already good examples of Indonesians who are doing great work there. And I know the government's trying to talk to them and see if they can maybe come back. I mean, most of them want to stay, but maybe they could come back and help with mentorship and things like that from time to time. I think that would be a great idea. And again, remember that there are many, many scholarship opportunities for students, not just through the LPDP program for graduate students, but also individual schools have their own scholarship opportunities that are usually merit-based scholarships. And more people want to have Indonesians in their student body because they know that Indonesia is going to be an important country in the world. So I think don't be at all afraid or shy about asking and marketing yourself, because you bring a lot to the table, and they would be very interested to have students from Indonesia. And then of course there's existing scholarship programs like the Fulbright program and other things. So if you go onto the U.S. Embassy website, there's a section on studying in the United States, and all of those things are listed there. And then of course we have this free advisory program called Education USA. So again, you could go talk to people, or you could do things. The easiest thing is just to come to America in a specific place, and there's a full-time person there who give you advice about things. The third question was, can we invite companies to help develop entrepreneurship in the universities? And I think the answer is yes, but again, you have to make it interesting for the companies. The companies are here to make money. They're not here to, and they have small corporate social responsibility programs, but they're going to be most interested in learning about research and development opportunities where maybe they can fund R&D in a university and then hire the graduates of that program to come back and work for them. That's the kind of partnerships that they would be interested to learn about. And if it's hard now if there are any kind of legal or other regulatory barriers, then I would encourage you, the university administration, to talk to the government. Talk to Minister Rudy Antara, talk to Minister Tom Limbaugh, the trade minister. Both of them are very, very active in promoting the digital economy. Minister Limbaugh is going next week to the United States with President Jokowi to the Sunnylands conference. After that conference, he's going to be speaking in San Francisco at a big conference that will take place there, and then he's going to Silicon Valley again. So he's been there several times in the last several months. So he's very active in trying to promote these kinds of links. But I think he's also very interested in learning and hearing from universities. So if there are barriers that prevent companies from investing in universities, then you should certainly let him know about that, and then he can try to fix it, because I'm sure he would be very interested to do that. And he himself is a Harvard graduate. He knows very well the importance of having these links with overseas companies and universities. I think that was it. Sure.
Three more questions. Anybody who's interested as well. Last question.
Thank you for the conversation. To the point, first of all, my name is Mohammed Yunus. I'm currently still on the PR leadership and from Minister of Communication and Informatics Affairs. The first question, how government in the US mediating the big company and startup in competition of the digital economy? I want to know about this because, as you know, Gojek in Indonesia becomes a threat for the big company taxi, like a Uber or something like that in Indonesia, like that. So I want to know from your perspective in the US how the government to mediate on this competition. The second is, I think the innovation. The second is the innovation is very related to the culture, and as you know, as an Asian countries, maybe since elementary we have a different culture education in the US or Indonesia or Europe. What do you think? What should be established first in shaping digital economy, especially in Indonesia, because we cannot compare the Indonesian context with the US context.
Thank you very much for the chance to ask you. I want to ask you, Mr. Robert Osprey. I wonder if there are any security regulations already in place in the collaboration of Indonesia and the United States in digital economy. And as we know that Indonesia has one of the most internet users and also one of the most cyber attacks come or originated from Indonesia. I want to ask if there are any regulation or maybe some things that already in place about the regulation to prevent cyber attacks in collaboration with the United States government and also Indonesia. And as we know that the security aspect is one of the most important for the startup makers and also the consumer. For example, if we store the consumer's data, it will be vulnerable if we cannot secure the data, and also this consumer's data will be used by one person. And what are your views about the consumer's data, and also are there any cryptographic or maybe some kind of things that can United States government do for Indonesia startups to prevent the stealing of consumers' data, and also to make sure that startup makers can innovate without having to worry about the security aspects. Thank you. Yes, my name is Agung from Faculty of Social and Political Science. I am criminology major.
Okay, thank you, Excellency, Ambassador. Thank you to invite me. Yeah, I'm from the private sector. Hopefully, not I'm the only one private sector here. This is very inspiring, the innovation and digital economy. I'm Adi Lukman from Indonesian Food and Beverage Association. You said about the three accesses: access to people, to capital, and to talent. This is very inspiring. And one more thing I think is for the food and beverage industry is access to regulations. As you know, the food industry and food trade, the regulation is getting stringent and stringent, and this is very important to encourage the newcomer, new player, and new entrepreneur in the food and beverage industry, especially the topic innovation and digital economy. My question is, how do you think about what is your experience in US? How is the regulations encourage or support the newcomer and new entrepreneur to develop the business and especially the innovation, digital economy, and also the food industry and business? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for those good questions as well. So the first question was about how some of these new companies are threatening more traditional companies, and what should be done about that. And I guess my answer is what you might expect from the American ambassador, which is nothing should be done about it, because that's what competition is all about. And that, as innovation proceeds, you're going to create entire new industries. And certainly the United States is a very good example of that. And I mentioned some of the ones already, that have been developed from nothing in just the last 10 or 15 years. Facebook, and Twitter, and Airbnb, and Amazon.com, and eBay, and all those other companies didn't exist 15 years ago. And so that's a great example of how there's been a tremendous change and wave of innovation. And certainly they have hurt the businesses of a lot of companies, but they haven't run them out of business. That Airbnb is the largest now booker of rooms around the world. But it doesn't mean that the other more traditional travel services don't exist anymore. They do. They just have reduced their business, and what they need to now do, and what many of them are doing, is to adapt. And so they need to embrace that new technology and do the same and create similar kinds of services that Airbnb does. So the answer is not to ban new companies; it's to encourage competition that's going to lower the prices of services and increase the efficiency of services for the consumer. So all of these things, and that's why they're called disruptive technologies. They by definition disrupt old industries and create new ones. And so obviously there's always going to be some people that are unhappy in the old industries. But I think government needs to be careful not to, again, over-regulate. Because if you try to stop these new companies from developing, it's going to be bad for your economy. And it's going to be bad for your consumers, because again, they're going to benefit from lower prices and better services from these new companies, like, let's say, Gojek or something like that. So government, I think, again, needs to maintain a light hand in regulating these kinds of things. And Mostly the role of government is just to provide the legal and regulatory and policy framework and hopefully stay out of it. And that's why we've had a good market in the United States, and that's why it's developed so strongly. The second question was about cyber attacks. And, you know, I think this is a growing concern in the United States and elsewhere. I think many of you heard that we've had some huge cyber attacks against American companies, against the government itself. And somebody went and broke into our Office of Personnel Management, which has a lot of the Social Security numbers and personal identifying information of government workers, and managed to make off with a very large amount of personal data, which is a very serious cyber attack. But there have been numerous examples of cyber attacks in the private sector. This is a growing concern of ours. It's a growing concern of your government. We believe there's a tremendous opportunity for us to work more with Indonesia. For the moment, there's been, the government has, first priority has been to create a cyber agency, a national cyber agency. And once they have that created, they want to then start to have cooperation with countries like the United States. And certainly we welcome that very warmly. We believe there's a lot that can be done. I don't think that if you're an entrepreneur with a startup, you need to be too worried about cyber theft of your, that's the least of your problems. The biggest thing is just coming up with a good idea and then getting it funded and getting the mentorship and so forth. The big cyber threats are against much bigger companies who are trying to steal money and they're trying to steal much more valuable things to begin with. So once you've established your business, if you're a tech startup, then you can get the appropriate cyber protection from local companies that provide that kind of service. But I wouldn't worry too much about that being a barrier to entry. That'll come further down the line when you've shown that your company is a profitable one. At that point, then you need to have good cyber protection. There was a third, the gentleman from the private sector. I'm glad to hear we have people from the private sector here today. Thank you very much for coming. And asked about, you know, what can the government do, and express some concern that sometimes there are more and more stringent regulations. And again, I would agree with that. I would just come back to the point I made earlier, which is the appropriate role of government is to establish the policy and regulatory framework, legal framework, and then hopefully not to get too much more involved. Because the minute you start creating more regulations and more taxation and more, you're just going to discourage investors and they're not going to come. They're going to go to places where it's more open, like Singapore and Malaysia and other countries like that. So very, very important to have a very open and make it as easy as possible for entrepreneurs to set up a business and develop their ideas. You know, in terms of what government can do, we've seen in New York, for example, New York City, the government has made available space in buildings, sometimes at no cost, to tech entrepreneurs and places where you know, they will provide training and initial advice and so forth to young entrepreneurs. And so that is a very good thing, because that, again, those can actually be very costly to get the land, to get the rent and so forth. So if the government's willing to do that kind of thing, and then have people who can come in and provide mentorship and access to capital and so forth, that makes a huge difference to young entrepreneurs who are just starting out and need that kind of advice. So that is, I think, an appropriate role for government. With apologies to Susie Suderman and everybody else, I'm afraid I have to be back for a meeting in Jakarta at 1 o'clock, so I think I'm going to have to say farewell. So let me hand up the phone back to Susie, and if there are any closing remarks. Thank you.
with the thought in our mind that 1% of GDP is not enough, and we need more technopreneurs so that we encourage our universities to work together with the private sector to make use of our talents and make sure that we become the 6% of GDP instead of just 1%. Okay? Thank you. And there are some goodie bags coming from the embassy for those that have questions, but I think we'll proceed with the...
It's the
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Ms. Susie and also the ambassador. Next, we are going to have the presentation of token of gratitude from Universitas Indonesia to the ambassador and also professor. We would like to invite Professor Susie to come to the stage. So this one is from Umum to the ambassador. And another one, the book is, this one is.
So, one of the things that we're all doing now is working very hard on your marvelous biodiversity in Indonesia and to protect your forests and protect your seas. So this is a book about the forests, the trees of America, and it symbolizes the wonderful cooperation now we have to protect Indonesia's wonderful tropical forests and the biodiversity.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Sulistiawati, and also Ms. Susie and the ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, next we are going to have a photo session. We would like to invite the ambassador and Ms. Susie to have the seat over there, and we're going to have the photo session from here. All the participants, we would like to invite you to come to the center of the auditorium, so we can take the photo together. Ya, di bagian tengah. Ya, silakan untuk teman-teman peserta bisa berdiri mungkin, atau kalau tidak cukup tempatnya. Yang bagian baris 3 baris pertama mungkin bisa duduk aja. Kalau nggak muat baru berdiri dan agak merapat supaya semuanya bisa masuk ke dalam frame. Silakan merapat lagi teman-teman yang peserta, bisa merapat aja. Bisa merapat, iya merapat terus ke tengah, iya silakan.